Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Joseph Szymanski. Another great episode today, another great guest, Jesse Stechly. What's going on, buddy?
Not much is going on at all.
It's good to see you, man.
Nice
It's good to
see
see
you
you.
as well.
So for those of you that don't know Jesse is a current student at Robert Morris University.
Yep.
Even though it's a crazy time right now, we don't know exactly what's going on with that. Maybe he'll be in class, maybe he'll be remote. We'll talk about that. He is also my sister's boyfriend of like 5 years.
6 years in October.
Holy hell, that's a long time. But more so than all that, Jesse and I have a really good relationship. Like over the past few years, like with all the things that I'm doing and everything that Jesse wants to do, we have really, I think, kind of like started to go down similar paths in a sense, right?
Yeah,
we have a lot of similar interests: technology, business, finance, like all these different things. And there's a lot of things that I would like to learn, and I think our audience can learn from you today. And we can just have this conversation about, specifically the things that you're very passionate about. So like cybersecurity, the come up in business and everything, and all the different ideas that we both have. We can kind of just chat about that, and really kind of just have a cool talk. So to expand on sort of the introduction there, give the people a little bit of backstory about what you have gotten to and done to this point, how old you are and stuff like that, and what everything you have done to this point has led you to kind of think as far as, like that business and type of route and everything like that.
All right. Yeah. So, first off, my technology, I guess you can say, I've always been a big technology user.
Mm-hmm.
We had like an old gateway computer, that was it was a dinosaur. Like it was running like 98 or something, or maybe even sooner than that, whatever it was. And I was always on it. Then we got another computer. I was always on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of always gravitated towards technology.
Right.
Especially since my brother was also kind of into that stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely something that was I was bound to happen to be in technology one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that I've always done. For business, I have my business inspiration has actually kind of gone. It was earlier than a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the second grade, grade, second or third grade, there were a couple girls in my class who wanted to sell these artsy crafty things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically just like poof balls with eyes on it, like googly eyes. And they were called ploofies. And during the same time, I came across this website, and it was actually a web design website.
Yeah.
And it was basically just drag and drop, do whatever you want with it.
Mm-hmm. And
when they started doing this, and they were saying, "Hey, we'll sell this to you for like $25," and I'm like, "Can I build you guys a website?
Yeah.
Like, I can do this." It was webs.com,
mm-hmm.
and I was always interested with technology. Web development at that early of an age. Yeah. And then the business part of it kind of came from that as well.
Right.
So that was like the very earliest memory that I have with business.
Mm-hmm.
Then getting older, I was still messing around with that web development site, but it wasn't anything special or anything.
Right. Yeah.
Then I got to middle school, and I took more of a route to the technology route. So in middle school, I was helping out a bunch of teachers. It was me and my two friends. We were helping out a bunch of teachers in the school, put their computers together, download software for them. Mm-hmm. So it was basically the three of us were the tech service people in the entire school. And, we would, get out of class,
right.
just because we say like, hey, we got to go put this computer together for
right.
this teacher. So we got out of a couple things, but it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot, put stuff together.
Yeah.
Then high school came along. Didn't really do anything with technology whatsoever. However, I got my first smartphone in high school. It was a
Mm-hmm.
Samsung Galaxy S3.
Mm-hmm.
And then my love for, mobile technology, that's where it started. Like I
Right.
had so many cell phones. I kind of have like my own like stash of all the cell phones I've ever had in my drawer just
Yeah.
to keep them, not doing anything with them.
Right.
Could have made money off of them
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I sold them,
Yeah.
but it was just never my intention
Right.
to sell them. But in high school, I was into a lot of music. So I was in, concert band, marching band. I was the drumline captain for, the 2 years, final 2 years of there. And then I was actually going to go into music education for college. And then I basically got talked out of it by my band director in a way. He was like, if you do this, you're going to have to put a lot of work into it. And also, there's no jobs.
Yeah.
And like I kind of like was like thinking like, there's a band director in basically at least every single school. So I was like, how are there no jobs? And he was like, if you're going to get a job, you're going to move down to the South. Because I guess marching band is huge down there.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're going to want to go down there.
Right.
So he kind of, gave me a realistic view of, how everything is, in regards to, his band directing career and everything.
Yeah.
So I competed in like an Allegheny County, band competition. Didn't even come close to being good at it. Like I had like 4 months to prepare. People were doing this for like 2 years in a row.
Oh, geez.
So just like I went in, it was a fun experience. Didn't really put, much effort into it. And then my senior year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go into teaching biology because I wanted to be education in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So I was like, I want to be a biology teacher. So Mr. Lesefko, science teacher at Canavan, I talked to him. I was like, hey, like, this is kind of what I want to do. Can you give me a little bit of background on it? He seemed stoked by it. Like, he was really excited.
Yeah.
I took the advanced biology class at Canavan. That was actually kind of cool. We got to dissect things. Kind of smelled bad, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. But then, like, was another thing. Like, teachers do not get paid very well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they should get paid a little bit more than they do, but it's just not the reality. They just don't get paid as good. Well, I mean, there are teachers that get paid pretty well. Like, I'm sure the Peters Township kids, or their teachers, they get paid like an astronomically amount.
Right.
Probably same with South Fayette or something. I wanted to find a job. I wanted to, get paid decently. Like, I don't want to be like in a bad financial situation when I'm older.
For sure.
So that played a lot of role into what I wanted to do. So, like I said, having that, thought that like I have to get into a bigger school to get paid better was always in the back of my mind. So like, even then I didn't really want to travel, in other places and live there for like years and years and years. Cause like, this is a pretty good area. Pittsburgh is like a really good area. So, like my second half of the semester, or like, the second semester of my high school, like the spring area time, springtime, we were deciding, well, actually, no, it was sooner than that. So one of the things that my mother made me do was decide where I wanted to go to college before Christmas. So I made that decision. I obviously chose Robert Morris. I got accepted to like 6 other schools, but Robert Morris was what I wanted to do because they had a cybersecurity program. So the last few months of my high school, my high school career, I joined the BCDC, the digital club at Canavan, and I learned a bunch of stuff there, basically like, audio stuff because they did this stuff with a play. So I was part of that. But then, fast forward, I ended up choosing the major, cyber forensics and information security, which when I tell people that, they look at me with deer in headlights.
Yeah, you're in the NSA.
Yeah, basically.
How did you what was the last, like the final straw that made you switch from the biology potential route to cybersecurity?
I decided that I wasn't going to go into education. Like, I did like the idea of biology. But my always, like, growing up, like, I was always around technology. I still love technology all throughout high school, even though I didn't do a lot with it.
Yeah.
So I was looking at a couple of schools. They had like computer science programs, but then RMU was like one of the only schools that had this, essentially the cybersecurity, degree. There wasn't really anything else. And they also were kind of compared to Carnegie Mellon to some degree. But that was like my decision. Like, I wanted to go into technology, but I wanted to go into a specific part of technology. I didn't want a broad, because like if you get a computer science degree, you can go into a lot of things, but like I wanted to go into security. So I obviously went and getting a security degree
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
and obviously the money is a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a lot of good things there. I think if we break it down a little bit and talk about it piece by piece, I think it'll be quite valuable, because like, so the way that I see it is, it's when I never wanted to do like education when I was in high school or when I was in college. It was always more of like a technology route, computer science, computer engineering, ultimately information science, which is kind of like a blend of business and tech. And I think it was right for me, but I think for a lot of people, like you said there, I don't know how many people grow up and say, oh, I want to, teach people for a living, right? I never said that I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. But now at this point, at this stage of the game, all I want to do is learn things and then teach people what I learned.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I think that is something that is pretty cool, that, now even with a lot of the things that we'll touch on here with your education in technology and your just experience with it, you're passing that on to other people now, right? So, at this point, you're going to Robert Morris, pursuing cybersecurity, network security, all that sort of stuff, like as a degree. Are you enjoying that so far? What has your experience been to this point?
Dude, it has been absolutely insane. The stuff that I'm learning. Like, there's just an entire side of technology that people just aren't aware of and do not care about whatsoever.
Yeah, I know I'm definitely not the most secure person. I do some things, but I think that there's definitely a lot of people that just don't take it seriously whatsoever.
Yeah, no, there's like, I don't know really what kind of got me into my big, like, wanting to learn more about security and the privacy that goes along with, technology. But it just kind of happened. And then I did research, and then that research led to other research. And then it was just like this huge, like there's just so much to it. And like I said, like, most people are users. They just use it because, it's provided to them, it's been given to them. But I was kind of curious as to how this stuff worked. What are they gaining out of it? Like, you're using a free service. How are you able to let someone use something for free? Like, how are they making money out of it?
Right.
That was something I was interested in.
And like, what have you found so far throughout your, well, let's actually take a step back. So how many more years, what are you pursuing right now? Just like a bachelor's in it?
Yeah, so I'm only going to pursue a bachelor's. Like I said, it's majors cyber forensics and information security. But I'm also going to minor in, well, I've also taken data and analytic courses. That's big at RMU. But the other thing that I've been doing is criminal justice courses as well. I'm probably going to get a minor in criminal justice.
Interesting. Do you think that those two like kind of parlay off of each other? Just so like how does that intertwine there?
So a lot of the criminal justice stuff that I've done, like I've done white collar crime stuff. So I've done I've looked into tax fraud, like people taking advantage of identity theft. That's a big one, especially in the cyber realm, because all you have to do is basically click on a link, enter in information, and then you realize after the fact, like, that wasn't a real link. You just gave people a bunch of information of yours, and then they take the information and basically run with it.
Right.
So that, having like that knowledge, and how I'm taking the criminology course as well. So I'm kind of like learning, how are these people thinking? What is their motive? Most of the time it is financial motive, but you do have some people that just kind of want to watch the world burn.
Right.
But you don't really see that all too often. A lot of it is financially motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit about that because I have some other, connections that we've, made in that sphere of like, I'm actually thinking more of like the hacking thing, but like there's different types, right? I mean, there's black hat, white hat,
yep.
white hat, gray hat. Do you see yourself, or have you ever done anything in the spirit of like, I don't know, like just like trying to break things just to see if they can be broken?
So one of the things that I've actually been taking a lot of interest in is exactly that. There's a company that I wanted to work for, and they required a lot of penetration testing. So basically, you're getting paid to hack companies. And I have some experience with, using hacking tools, analyzation tools. So, I mean, my degree is, on some part, we're learning how to do this because we need to be able to keep those bad guys out, essentially.
Right.
So we got to be able to, kind of like think like them. Like, how are we going to get into this network? Well, I would do it like this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think you gotta really, like you said, put yourself in their shoes and then see.
Exactly.
And so I guess that's the spirit of white hat hacking to a certain degree, right? Where do you go from here? Like as you fast forward, like not you specifically, but let's take it first from somebody that's in that position, right? If there's somebody out there and they're interested in like cybersecurity, or they're interested in technology, maybe in a broader perspective, what have you found so far that has been difficult or maybe easier to like think about next steps as far as like where you would apply, what kind of job you would get, what corporations and maybe government agency type stuff?
Yeah. So a lot of the places right now that are hiring in my field are definitely banks. PNC is a big one. BNY Mellon is a big one. Like I just had a friend. He was in the same field as mine, but he was like a year or two older. He graduated. BNY Mellon basically hired him on the spot.
Wow.
And so he was working at the BNY Mellon in Pittsburgh. Well, then they decided like, hey, do you want to go to the actual Bank of New York, in New York? And he was like, yeah, sure. So he went over there. He's actually technically he already lived over there. Like he was from like the Philadelphia area. There's technically Bethlehem, but he was already over there, and like he takes like a 2-hour bus ride every day now. So,
jeez.
But he's doing a lot of cool stuff. I would say he's doing a lot of analyzation, database management stuff, like database security.
Yeah, really
cool stuff.
Nice, that's cool. I mean, I do appreciate like fields like that where obviously you're able to get those opportunities to travel and things like that to bigger corporations, but like just in general, like the point of it is to ultimately protect data and protect people, and in a situation like that with banks, I mean, there's a lot of security that goes in with money.
Yeah, there's a lot. One slip up and like basically people aren't going to be too happy about it. But obviously banks are a big one, so there's a lot of private sector stuff involved. But the next one, I can go into is they are like the government agencies. I've actually gotten to meet a lot of people throughout my years as, working, where I worked, going to school where I go to school, and then just knowing people who I know. Recently, I actually just got to meet a Secret Service agent.
Nice.
And he actually does the exact same thing that I'm going to school for. So he does a bunch of cyber forensics. He basically takes computers, analyzes them, finds incriminating evidence on them, and I'm just like, that's kind of what I've been trained to do. Like, that's pretty cool. And then he does a lot with the dark web stuff. And when he and I were talking, like I literally just talked to him last weekend, and when he and I were talking, I'm just like, I was just on the dark web just last week as well. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the cool thing about the dark web is it's not what people kind of think it is.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it, but I don't know. Yeah, try to educate me on that. Like, what is that?
So Well, one of the things that you will find on the dark web is you will find a lot of illegal things on the dark web.
Right.
Typically, you will find a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
You will find a lot of counterfeit money.
Mm-hmm.
You apparently, I don't search for this stuff.
Yeah.
But apparently, you can come across child pornography on it.
Right.
But from what I understand, that's more on the surface web and not so much on the the dark web, which is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. I have a question
Yeah.
quickly about that. Is the dark web itself, like accessing it, is that illegal?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Accessing the dark web is as simple as downloading 2 pieces of software and then, like
It's just like
It's-
accessing
is
a different
not
part
illegal.
of the internet.
It's
Gotcha.
what you do on it that
I
can
gotcha.
be illegal. Buying drugs,
Right,
selling drugs,
Right.
buying guns, selling guns, which that's actually not. It's apparently not that easy to do.
Yeah.
Sell guns on the dark web.
Yeah.
Because you can't really easily transport that through
Right.
a postal service.
Right.
Like you can hide that can hide a little thing of I don't know whatever
whatever
hard drug
weird
is
drug or
popular
whatever.
nowadays.
Yeah. Interesting though.
Yeah, I came across counterfeit money for use in the UK. So you would buy you'd pay $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, but you would receive like $10,000 in counterfeit money. So like you could theoretically use the $10,000 in counterfeit money, even though you've spent $5,000 in your actual money.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting because it's so easy to access.
Yeah. Is it one of those things though where like if you access the dark web, you're almost guilty by association because why the hell would you be on there?
No.
No? Like what else is on? Is there anything redeeming on there at all?
So the main thing about the dark web, well, first off, the purpose of the dark web, like I said, it's not just drugs. It's not just, all this illegal stuff. There is that side of, the illegal activity.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, the biggest thing about the dark web is anonymity.
I see.
Yeah. So obviously, we're in this technologically advanced world. Everything's connected to everything. You can basically be tracked just by walking down the street.
Right.
So the thing about the dark web is that you're using the Tor browser, right? So, it's bouncing, through different areas. So it's hard to trace, kind of what you're doing, but it's not impossible to, trace what you're doing on the Tor web. And that's where a lot of people kind of get confused because they think that just by accessing the Tor browser to access the dark web that you're safe, and you're not actually all that safe. But it's different. It's a different area. So like I said, not just illegal stuff, but anonymity is a big thing. A lot of journalists use the dark web to, for transferring of information that can, put a government to its knees or something. Like a government may not want them to have that information, but a journalist needs to be able to access that information and basically, do whatever they need to do. A lot of people who are actively against their, governments, like in a lot of countries, like whatever countries are out there, like I'm sure there's a lot of people in China using dark web for a lot of things. There's a ton of censorship over there.
Right.
But
is
then,
that a way they could get around it if they just
kind of in a way, unless they have some sort of blocking, because like you can tell, like some people, like some companies are able to tell that you're on the Tor network and they can automatically block that. So I'm sure China's infrastructure can block that in some way, shape, or form. But like China's really messed up with the censorship and stuff like that.
right?
The other thing is that people, like rape victims, go onto these forums in the dark web, and they basically have the anonymity and privacy to be able to talk to other people who may have also been rape victims, or like there's communities on the dark web that are very, very private, and people want to be able to talk about things and not be scrutinized or anything like that.
Right. Interesting.
So that's a side of the dark web that is often overlooked. But really, there's a lot of cool stuff that's involved in it.
Yeah.
Just stay
That's
away from the illegal stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. I mean, like I had never done a lot of research on that, but I think a lot of people probably think dark web bad, you know?
Exactly.
Like
And that's not even like their fault. Like
right.
media, like Hollywood, you know, they've portrayed it as this bad thing, and bad things have happened on there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's just a kind of like a risk in order to be, you know, essentially free online.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this is a really good topic overall, because I know that we've had conversations in the past and we've talked about like privacy versus, I want to call it like privacy versus convenience in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that it just continues to weigh more towards convenience, and people get like less and less private, and you know, you're just giving your data away, you know,
Right.
every second to
You
Facebook
are,
and
yeah.
everything. And I'm interested on your take on it, because as somebody, you know, sitting across from you that tries to be as, well, I can't say as private as possible because I put everything that I do on the internet,
Yeah.
but from a you know, the stuff that like maybe you'd want to keep private, like silly stuff, almost like passwords and things like that.
Exactly.
And there's best practices for all that, and we can
Right.
get into all that. What is your overall stance, or like when you say to me almost like, you know, and you know, I don't know, the like Tor and Brave, another browser,
I love that.
right? So maybe talk a little bit about Brave. Talk about like how to stay safe online and what your opinion is on the whole privacy versus convenience thing.
Yeah, so I mean that's
It's a loaded question.
It very much
there's
is,
a
yeah.
lot there, but wherever you want to kind of take that.
Yeah, so I feel like you are able to gain privacy, but yeah, you do you will be sacrificing a good amount of convenience for it. For example, Google is known to not be the most privately, like they don't really care too much about your privacy, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So there's alternatives to Google, and one of the you know, things that you can use is DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is a search engine, as just how Google is a search engine, just how Bing is a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
DuckDuckGo will give you good search results, but they're not going to give you personalized search results.
Right.
A lot of times people are expecting to get personal search results, you know, tailored to what they're, you know, what they're interested in and what they're kind of, you know, looking for in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that part of the, you know, privacy is also bleeding into the, like, almost like the politics side of technology, because Google is basically, from what I've seen, Google, like when you use Google, it's a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
The way you are searching things, like how you are saying, like the questions, like for example, reasons why Donald Trump is a bad president. If you were to type that into Google, Google will be like, okay, this guy doesn't really like Donald Trump.
Right.
So we're not going to give him a bunch of pro-Trump stuff.
Right.
Same with people who is like, reasons why Donald Trump is a good president. Google's like, okay, hey, you know, this guy likes Trump. We're going to give him a lot of conservative, you know, links rather than the opposite.
Right.
DuckDuckGo is definitely not anywhere close to that. What you type in, it's going to give you results based on what you typed in, not what Google thinks you typed in.
Mm.
So that plays a role, but I don't really want to get into, you know, that side of the, you know, technology and politics side too, because that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
But again, you're sacrificing personalized, potentially better search results by giving up a little bit of your privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of giving up convenience for privacy and security are also kind of, they go hand in hand together. So when you think about convenience, you know, you're using, you know, biometrics, you're using your fingerprint, you're using your facial recognition stuff. That is very convenient, but that's not very secure. there's a couple reasons why is, you don't really want to use biometrics. Obviously, when it comes to like if you ever were to get essentially arrested in a way, the police officers, they can make you put in your biometrics. They can make you use your fingerprint scanners. They can make you use your facial recognition to unlock your phone, which could potentially have incriminating evidence on it. But when you just use like a password, you're typing in a password on your phone, that's a little bit inconvenient instead of just having the automatic, instantaneously unlocking your phone with your face or your fingerprint.
Right.
So that's an inconvenience, but that's also more of a matter of security. Does that kind of make sense in a way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that obviously, I think the biggest way that you touched on it specifically is people taking the data that you give them, whether like directly or sort of somewhat indirectly. You don't fill out normally a survey like these are the things that I like, in a sense. Like it's a little more indirect than that. Like you said, typing in a search engine and then them extrapolating, oh, this guy is conservative, this guy likes the Penguins, whatever, and then maybe shows things like that. I mean, a perfect example is retargeting of ads when you go to like dicksportinggoods.com and then they have an ad campaign ran, and then you see those ads on like Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yeah, I get a lot of times, like a couple of my friends, they're kind of like they think it's funny that they will type in something, or they'll see something in a post of someone they follow, and then literally the next post is a sponsored ad of whatever was in that thing, or whatever was searched for. Or even better, a lot of people have said that they were having a casual conversation, and they automatically get ads for whatever they were talking about. That happened to me, and it was like a huge realization like 2 years ago. I was talking to there's two times. I was talking to my one friend, and I was like, I kind of want to go to the Renaissance Festival, man. Yeah. Like, it was like in July, but this festival was like in August or September. I was like, I kind of want to go to the Renaissance Festival. I haven't gone in a while. Yeah. They have cool shows. There's fire breathing, there's jousting, kind of dorky stuff, but like it was something, to do.
Right.
So it wouldn't be like a weekend.
And you were just talking about it.
We were just talking about it. Literally 10 minutes later, I hop onto Instagram, buy your Renaissance tickets here. Yeah. I'm just like, that's not right. Yeah. That shouldn't happen. And then another instance was, it was around the same time you did your review on the Andar. Was it Andar wallet? What was that? The wallet?
It was a Secret.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I was talking to my friend, Schmitty.
Schmitty.
I was on my way back to RMU from, I was actually pretty sure I was on my way back to RMU from your house, because you were talking about it. Yeah. And like I was like, man, this wallet's kind of cool. So I called up him. We were talking about wallets on the way. Yeah. We were on the phone. And then I get back to my dorm, and there's literally a wallet ad on my phone. And I have never searched for the Renaissance Festival. I have never searched for anything regarding a wallet. Yeah. Because I don't go around just shopping for wallets randomly. So the second time it happened, I was not necessarily freaked out, but I was more disappointed that this was kind of even allowed in a way. Like, it's not a conspiracy or anything. Yeah. Like,
it's like advertising and money driven.
Exactly.
I mean, Facebook has all this data. It only makes sense. They're not a social media company. I mean, they're more of like a data company, right? Same thing with Google.
Yeah, they're like, Google's like 90% of their revenues from advertising.
Yeah, so it's like, it's interesting. I think I look at it a couple ways. I look at it from a business perspective. It's amazing. Like, it's amazing what they've been able to do.
Yeah, and I try to look at it like that too,
But at the same time, though, you come back around. It's like, well, a lot of people, you're kind of losing your privacy. You're losing your sense of security for a little bit of convenience here and there, and a lot of advertising placed towards you. So, question to you after you had those experiences. Did you do anything to change that? Do you have any like tips or tricks on like how to be more private in that regard?
Yeah, disable your microphone in those specific apps. Okay. I mean, obviously you can't 100% disable your microphone because you still need to be able to make phone calls.
Right.
But I've seen that once you disable the microphone, the camera, and Instagram, Facebook, whatever, like you don't see those anymore.
Yeah.
That also plays a role into go into your ad, go into your settings and disable ad personalization, because they do a lot of other stuff under the hood as well with that.
Yeah.
But just a microphone thing. Like I have my microphone disabled on Facebook, especially Instagram, only when I enable it only when I need it. So
yeah, again,
it's crazy.
Convenience versus privacy, I suppose. You're just switching your microphone on and off, and
very inconvenient.
Yeah,
better, very private.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think it kind of stops there, or do you think, how do you, and maybe this is a question for you, because as somebody that, I see, and again, you can explain further as we get into like more of the business conversation and the things that you want to do moving forward, you specifically, how do you balance, have you found a way, have you had any ideas of balancing your privacy with like being able to attain the things that you want to do from a business perspective, if that's the route you want to go? Because like, I'll give you me as the example, right? I mean, like everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to just put out there, right? Like I'm not telling people my social security number and passwords and stuff like that, but I'm trying to be as authentic and as transparent as possible with the information that I'm providing. So like, have you thought of any ideas as you continue to grow, maybe get into like more of like a not like a public figure per se, but like something where people like know you as like, a leader of a company or part of a business? How do you think that's all going to play out, do you think?
I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to, I think I'm going to have to sacrifice some privacy to get that out there.
Right.
Because when you go on, certain people's social media, like any social media, you will find a lot of things about them, find out a lot of things about them that they don't know, And I had a mobile forensics class in college, and one of the things that we had to do was find out certain information about a certain person. Now, this person was completely made up; it was fake. But the Twitter accounts, the Facebook accounts, they were real. It's just that there's no real user behind them, and we had to basically investigate, like, who does this person know, where are they from, like. That's just the stuff that you can pretty much figure out by, just go on someone's social media. And then you find out what their dogs' names are. Then you find out what their parents' names are. And then you can go into, investigating their parents. What was their mother's maiden name? You can find that out. And a lot of those are security questions to get into, accounts. Like Instagram, your banking questions. They ask you what your mother's maiden name is. A simple Google search is going to give that, someone their mother's maiden name. So being able to, be the public figure that, I'm going to end up having to be, I'm going to have to definitely, sacrifice privacy in order to get a lot of stuff across, my point across. I don't want to. Hopefully there's another alternative way to do that, but
yeah, I gotcha. So, I mean, I don't know. That's interesting because, like I said, I
feel like this topic is not talked about enough, like privacy in the U.S.
Yeah.
My friends, I would say that a lot of Gen Zers. I am a Gen Zer technically. I don't. Are you a millennial?
I have no idea. I'm right on the line. 96. So I don't know.
A lot of Gen Zers, they do not care about privacy, security. Like my one friend, she asked me to look at her computer because it was acting weird. And then I was like, okay, well, can you put in your password? And she goes, no, I'll just tell you the password. And it's her 2 dogs' names. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe we touch on that real quick because that's another one of those easy things to do. Like, maybe an easy way to alter, to be a little more secure. What I do, I'll tell you what I do, and then you can tell me how I'm wrong. I use
You're wrong.
I am wrong. First problem is I'm using Google Chrome, I suppose, but like I use Google and I use Google Chrome, and I have one password for like the account, and then that every password is stored in that account, and it's stored. And those passwords though I don't even know them, like they're randomly generated, and they're like 15 characters long or whatever. So, when I get a new account, it's one of those suggested randomly generated ones, and then they're all backed up by like a master password that is a pretty decent password. It's relatively difficult.
So you are using are
Like
you
I'm
using Chrome's
as the
password
yeah,
manager?
correct. So like where are the weaknesses there, like in just using a password manager in general, or maybe like what would you recommend?
All right. So first off, you don't want to use a browser's, in-store password manager. Like if Google asks or Chrome or any browser asks you like, "Hey, do you want us to, save this password for you?" You don't really want to do that. That's not necessarily a privacy thing. That's more of a security thing. Because when you go into like the Chrome file, you can find your password saved in plain text on
Really?
your computer.
Really?
On your
Not
computer.
encrypted?
Not encrypted.
Why?
Because there's just I don't know why.
That's weird.
I don't know if there's like because like I'm just confused. So you are using a master password.
Well, I'm using a password, like my email account, my Gmail account.
Yeah.
Has a password that I made that is good. We'll call it good, somewhat strong.
All right.
Okay. So when I put that password in to like my account, like I go onto Google, type in gmail.com, put in my email, put in that password. Then I have access to that email account, that Google account, everything comes with the Gmail account, right? Then when you go to like I think it's passwords.google.com. I don't think it's actually on the browser. I could be wrong about this. I don't think it's on the browser. I think it's associated with the account. Because when you go to passwords.google.com, then it asks you, okay, what's your password? And then you can see that. And then it has a list of all the websites and then the passwords that are affiliated, with them and like the accounts and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm still almost certain that those are still being stored on your actual computer. Like there's probably a copy online. But I'm almost certain that that's still going to be, saved on your actual device.
So not that secure.
No.
What would you recommend? What's your
what
go-to?
I use is a like a legitimate password manager. So there's a ton of these out there, but a lot of them are paid, but there's actually a few that are free. The one that I use is called Bitwarden. It is a free and open source, fully encrypted, thing. It's cross-platform. You can use it on essentially any device that you want. And it's basically I have one master password to access the encrypted passwords because like it's stored, but they're stored encryptedly, and they don't get decrypted until I put in that password to then allow me to see those passwords.
I gotcha. I thought that's how that would have worked, but I guess not.
I don't think so. The browsers you don't really want to use browser. The browser password managers, because if I were to use the software that I'm being, taught in school, I can find those passwords in plain text. It's that simple. Just creating an image of it, it gives me those passwords because it's under a certain file extension.
Gotcha.
So that's just use a password manager. A lot of password managers create a password for you. You can have it. You can create a password randomly with letters, numbers, symbols. Like we can, 8 characters all the way up to like, I don't know, like 86 characters.
Wow. Yeah.
So obviously, the longer the passwords, the better as well. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So maybe I'll have to rethink that. But no, that's good info. As like an average consumer and stuff like that, I think that it is probably good practice to like you said, there's a lot of people out there that just don't care. What do you think has happened? Like, like even like people our parents' age, probably care. I know my dad, for instance, obviously cares much more about it. Like what do you think has happened?
From my experience, the older generation does care a whole lot more than the younger generation. That's definitely a cultural thing. Because I think the older generation, they grew up with the limited government, surveillance. They don't really trust a lot of things that they don't really understand.
Right.
But that could be across generations. But from my experience and my work experience, being around a bunch of these types of people, the older generation cares more about their privacy. They It cares more about their security. And it's just really hard to convince the younger generation, like, hey, this stuff actually matters.
Right.
But there's just a level of ignorance in the younger generation, and ignorance as in there's like, they just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to know, like, they could potentially change their minds.
Right.
But like with the whole TikTok thing, man, like,
that's
it's
crazy.
essentially Chinese spyware.
Yeah. What exactly are they doing? I haven't looked into it enough.
They're just accessing a bunch of information off of your phone, which, to their defense, every single app nowadays, every single person, every single developer, their apps do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll access your network, your files on your, your device. They'll access your location, microphone, camera. Like, there's apps that are accessing your camera for no reason.
Jeez.
Like, there was an exercise app that got busted. An exercise app. They were caught accessing and basically collecting microphone data and camera data.
Wow.
Yeah.
For no reason.
For no reason. Like, why would a exercise app need to have that stuff?
Is the concern then more about like who's collecting the data?
Yes,
being China?
That's a big thing. Yeah. So obviously, with us being the U.S., we do not get along with China at all. And it's not like we don't get along with them for no reason. Like, there are reasons why we are kind of in this like fight with them. Mm-hmm. They do, like, for example, one of my professors, former FBI agent, he was part of the counterterrorism task force and counter espionage task force in the Pittsburgh FBI headquarters. Mm-hmm. Carnegie Mellon is a huge target for Chinese spies. They want to come in and literally steal the information that Carnegie Mellon is developing. They have a contract. Carnegie Mellon has a contract with, I think, the U.S. Navy in regards to submarine development. So they've caught so many Chinese spies trying to steal that information. And then the Chinese government, specifically, Huawei got in trouble a lot of times back in like the early 2000s, kind of recently, stealing like network information. Like, they'll go, how like they have like CES and like they have like those types of things, but there was like this event where like the telecommunication companies were going out there and showing off their technology, and they had this one. I think T-Mobile had this one thing on display, but it was under lock and key. They came over to they had everything shut down, like it was like late at night or something, and then like the security found this one guy taking off the security of this T-Mobile technology, and they traced him back to Huawei.
Oh, geez.
So they don't know if it was like really Huawei that was stealing it, or if it was the Communist China Party, whatever, that was activating.
Yeah, it's like all wrapped in one.
Yeah, basically, like Chinese companies have to follow China rules.
Yeah.
And they have to do a bunch of stuff, and it's just really crazy over there, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that's strange. That's absolutely wild. I knew that to a certain degree. I actually have a Huawei.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
laptop.
It's a terrific device.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to your threat level, like your threat assessment, basically. And I would encourage most people to sit down, take a look at like what do they want to keep private, what do they not really care too much about, and just kind of assess like who do they not want this to see, people to see these certain things.
Right. I feel that. So with all of this, and like we said, we talked a little bit there about the current threats, like some like things like TikTok, social media, just make it that are making life a little bit less private, and the security of all the passwords and stuff like that. I want to get into what you are doing and what you're thinking about moving forward, right? So you are close to being done with your degree. Do you plan on trying to get like a position somewhere in like the cybersecurity field, and then we obviously have another entrepreneurship venture to talk about there as well. But like, but what about your career first? Like, is there a plan for that right now?
Career, I definitely want to work in the field of cybersecurity, cyber forensics, anything really with that. Because like I don't want to feel like I don't want to like, be, 35 years old down the road, and I went to school for this specific thing, and then not really having anything to do, like working in that field that doesn't really have anything to do with it. So I definitely want to get into cybersecurity, cyber forensics, the whole shebang. Whether it's private or government related, I don't know. I don't have a preference. I would absolutely love to work for the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Just because I met the one guy last week, and he kind of debunked a lot of like myths about the Secret Service. Mm-hmm. For example, I always thought that the FBI were the number one, lead people to investigate cyber terrorism, basically the entire cyber realm. But that's not true. The Secret Service isn't just about protecting the president. It's not like you see that in films.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole side of the Secret Service that people don't know about. And when I was talking to this guy, he was explaining to me like, yeah, like the Secret Service, like we are like the number one cyber intelligence things in the entire world. The FBI is playing catch up. That's exactly what he said. And I was like, I'm sorry. I feel bad. Like I was under the impression like the FBI was in charge of all of this stuff.
Right.
He goes, yeah, that's a common misconception. And the thing is, when he goes and investigates things in the area, a lot of places like business owners, they always say to him, why is the Secret Service here? Like, you guys don't do that. And then they will send the Secret Service people away because they don't believe that they are the real Secret Service agents. So he said that a lot of times that he has to call the local police department and say, hey, like these Secret Service agents are real. Your business has gotten hacked. And all this other stuff. Like there's a very inconvenience when working with the Secret Service because nobody knows that they are the number one, group in the U.S. for cyber intelligence.
That is absolutely crazy. I didn't realize that. So is that that's something that you could see yourself doing? You think that?
Yeah. Like I've always had this. I've always had this, like, something inside of me, like, just wanting to, get the bad guys. And,
right.
I know the reason why for that because, growing up, my friends were watching SpongeBob and, me, I never watched SpongeBob.
Yeah.
My parents didn't like it. But one of the things that my entire family would watch is a lot of CSI movies, CSI shows, Criminal Minds, detective stuff. NCIS was a big one.
Yeah.
So I would say that stuff has influenced me incredibly into who I am, today. Like having this desire to be a good guy and kind of like almost fight for your country in a way, get rid of the bad guys.
Right.
So yeah, I can definitely see myself in some kind of government agency, whether it's Secret Service, FBI, maybe NSA, but they kind of get a bad rap. Don't really know what they do other than the NSA, the National Security Agent or National Security Agency is also called the National Surveillance Agency, and that's something I don't really necessarily agree with. But
yeah, that's a strict thing there too, because like now it's like, do you become, if you're the government and part of the NSA and stuff like that, like where's that line drawn between just what you said there, security and surveillance? And I mean, obviously that must be a joke, like the surveillance thing, or is that?
No. So are you familiar with who Edward Snowden is?
Yeah. I mean, to a degree.
To a degree. So, for those who don't know, he was this whistleblower for the NSA. He was like this big NSA guy. He was the head of, everything. He basically helped the NSA create a bunch of mass surveillance, software. It's just interesting, that whole thing, because like it's basically split 50-50 as to whether people think he's a good guy or whether people think he's a bad guy. I I have not made a decision yet.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like he did basically come out say like, hey, the US and the UK have really bad mass surveillance issues that they have been doing. But, you know, he also released potentially a lot of dangerous information that was kind of critical to our actual national security.
Right.
So it's just interesting. Right now he's hiding in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Of all places, he's
Yeah,
hiding in our mortal enemy.
Right.
So
Right.
that was a really bad decision what the government has
Yeah.
done with that whole situation.
Yeah.
Really messed up.
Yeah. Are you, and here's the sort of like the second piece of that. Are you, and like, what is the idea or the mantra behind like being very secure, very private? Is it you're supposed to be completely private? Are you protecting your privacy from corporations, the public, the private sector, or like is it like the government as well, or is it everyone?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I would like to say that I am protecting myself from both the government and the corporations. Some people kind of have a little bit more trust in the government than others. Some people have a little bit more trust in corporations than others. There's two types of different people in the world that kind of falls under, underneath that.
Right.
I think it's important for people to want to have privacy. There's a lot of reasons for that. Like, you really should be able to say whatever you want.
Right.
And like, I'm not talking about like calling the harm to people. That's actually illegal in the U.S. I know. I think Dave Cupp or someone they went over that like, you shouldn't be able to, I don't remember what it was actually, but you really should be able to say whatever you want. Like, we do have the First Amendment, freedom of speech. But like obviously you can't say bomb in an airport, you can't say fire in a movie theater, and you definitely can't call to harm, to others. Like people don't understand, like that is illegal. You cannot actively say, hey, you guys need to go and shoot this place up. You guys need to go and bomb this place. That's illegal. You can't do that. So the current legal things that revolve around the freedom of speech is that you do have the freedom to do whatever you want, and say whatever you want. And right now, I think that's kind of definitely, it's kind of scary nowadays. Like people are calling for Facebook to censor certain things, and that is very scary because, they're basically giving a corporation the say to say like, hey, like, if theoretically a company could, sway one way on the political spectrum. So if they don't like the other side of the political spectrum, they could say, hey, we don't like that. We're going to censor that. So the reality right now is that people are calling on Facebook to, censor things. And that's to me really dangerous. Right now there is a bill that is, I think, going to the Senate. It's called the Earn It Act. Don't know what it stands for. But it's basically saying it's basically telling the technology companies like Facebook, Twitter, it's basically telling them like, hey, if one of your users says something bad, it is your responsibility to censor that. So that kind of comes into the realm of over censoring, because if they don't censor it, they get fined for it. So then, like, where's the fine line of what is allowed to be said and what isn't allowed to be said?
Right. That's interesting. Are you saying that's not in place yet?
The Earn It Act?
Or it is?
It's still being, I think it passed the House, possibly. I think it needs to be talked through on the Senate or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't really know the things about that, but there's another side to that that's a little interesting. So right now, the Earn It Act is specifically for child exploitation.
Right.
So that's the other thing. Like, they don't want companies to be able to allow the potential use of child pornography on their platforms If they do, you get fined for it. But the other thing that they're having in this bill is that they want to create a backdoor to encryption. So that is not good.
Right.
That is actually very, very bad. Like, I understand that, we need to protect children at all costs with, exploitation, pornography, anything like that. Like, that is a very big issue that is probably really big in the US, that no one really talks about all too much, because it is a very sensitive topic. But the way that they want to go about like protecting it is sacrificing the privacy of 330 million people in the US. And they're just not taking into consideration of the security risk by creating a backdoor access into people's everyday, conversations. Like, who's to say that a government, foreign intelligence isn't going to go and look and like get into this back door and then read those, those messages that could be private, that could be super sensitive. It's a very back and forth and backwards bill. Yeah. And they need to kind of fix that, and hope they do kind of fix it.
Yeah. A couple of things I'm thinking about. One is, I think about this from a lot of different angles, but specifically in this one, how do you think, and do you have any opinions in, like, because you just brought up like the bill, right? It's a legal thing. Like, it's a government issued thing. What do you think? And I'm laughing because I'm thinking about when, like, I don't know if it was Zuckerberg or whoever went to like the in front of the House or in front of the Senate or whoever, and he was talking, and like,
my God,
there's like all these old people, and that's like a thing that I have thought about like a bunch of times, not just because of technology, but just in general. Like, I mean, the world changes, it changes so rapidly, and especially over the last 20 years, it's like, how could you still be in charge or like, making decisions in this country if you are like 60-year-old plus? And I think I just saw like a graph or something. Like, I'm pretty sure the average age is like up there. It's like in the 60s.
It's pretty high up there. I don't consider myself to be anywhere close to being an ageist. Like, I understand that, people deserve to have, the ability to work wherever they want.
Right. I try not to be as well, but at the same time, I think that when there's when you can clearly see that there might be a better way to do things.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I understand that there are a lot of older people out there who are very keen to technology. Like, they are very well-rounded when it comes to technology. The people in charge of it in our government, there is a clear, you just know that they're not really sure what they're talking about.
Right.
So they try to make points that are kind of either irrelevant or make no sense at all. I don't know how like they're gonna really fix that other than getting voted out by a younger crowd. But even then, like I said earlier, like, the younger crowd also doesn't necessarily care too much. I would say that the average, teenager or people our age, like, they don't really know the ins and outs of their cell phone. Like, okay, so I didn't tell this to anyone, but I used to work for Cricket Wireless, and I used to work for Verizon Wireless, and I got to meet a lot of people. So when I got to meet these people, it didn't matter what age they were very not aware of how their cell phone worked in general. So I think in order to fix it, they are going to need to have people who are actually interested in technology and want to and have the ambition to know about technology. But I also don't think that those types of people that are in politics don't know anything about technology. Yeah.
It's very weird scenario that we found ourselves in. And again, like, it's not an ageist thing, like you just said. It's a lot of people. It doesn't matter how old you are. You kind of just, you got to be interested in it almost.
Yeah, and you got to know about it. Yeah. And I just don't think that they know anything about it.
I don't know how they're allowed to make like decisions that they're not like informed on or experienced with, certain things. So that's all just very very strange.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah, but really dumb. Hopefully that gets rectified. Not really too much we could do on our end per se, other than democratic process. But that's a whole other topic for a different time. I want to kind of like slide into that. You mentioned what I understand to be sort of the root of another sort of thing that you're interested in doing. And you talked about your customer service experience at Verizon and Cricket, and dealing with different people and, you know, helping them and educating them on their technology. So moving forward, we've talked about it a little bit. Maybe you want to introduce like sort of the business idea that you have and like something that you've kind of been working on, you know, via like in your spare time. So, and all that.
Yeah. So for about, I think since I got out of high school, I've had this this need to be around a lot of technology. And I always thought, well, it's technically mobile phones are like the bleeding edge technology. There's a new one every year. There's better like graphics. There's better screens. There's like a bunch of technology that is put into a cell phone. I wanted to be a part of that. So the first job that I applied to out of high school was working at Verizon Wireless. They did not want me because I had no experience, but they didn't know that I knew a lot about that stuff. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Right.
So I had a phone call, a phone call interview with T-Mobile. And I was talking to my one friend about, I was like, yeah, I got this interview with T-Mobile. Like, I feel like this is going to be fun. And he goes, ugh, why T-Mobile? And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't really like T-Mobile either, but it's like, it's a job and it's something that I kind of want to do. And I kind of forgot that this friend I was talking to, he was working at Cricket Wireless for like 3 years. Like he was a sophomore or a junior when he first started, like in high school when he first started working at Cricket Wireless, because he knew people who knew people, I think. So he got a job there. He was there for like 3-4 years already at that point. And he goes, why don't you just come to work at Cricket? So I kind of blew off the T-Mobile phone call. I went home, I beefed up my resume, and I went down to Cricket Wireless like the next week or something. And like it turned out that the manager, like the owner of the stores that I worked at, it turns out I was on his boat when I was in like 6th grade.
Oh my.
And it was just kind of interesting because like I was like, this is a really small world.
Right.
Like I was on your boat like 3, 4, 5, 7 years ago or something.
Yeah.
So I already knew him. So like I was already like confident about that. So we had a very informal, interview. They liked my resume. They liked how it looked. It looked really dumb.
Yeah.
Because it was very graphic-y. There was boxes here, like circles. It was blue. It was green. Like it was like right out of high school. So like I didn't know what a resume was supposed to really look like, other than like it was supposed to catch the eye. So I'm like, I'll just use this template from Microsoft. That was really wacky.
Jeez.
They liked it. And they were actually the nicest people ever. So I was at Cricket Wireless for about 1.5 years. And I was going to college at this time. So my college was about 30-40 minutes from where I worked, sometimes an hour, depending on which store I was at that day. So I would be going down from, Moon Township all the way down to Waynesburg, like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
So that kind of burned me out. I really enjoyed the job. I love the people that I've worked with. Cricket customers are, they're fun people. It's I don't know how to explain them, but there's like this it's like a family. Like all the Cricket customers know one another. It was interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I liked them. I enjoyed them, but then I was like, I didn't really want to drive, an hour, there and back when I'm still in college.
Yeah.
So I went on Indeed.com and I found out that there was a Verizon store that was just being built right down the road from my from my college. And first off, there were 2 Verizons in Moon Township. There's one across the street from RMU, and then there was one right down the road. I don't know why they decided to do that, but it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But I wanted to work at the one across the street, but they weren't hiring. So then I went to the website down the road and applied there. And then they called me like 3 days later, and they were like, hey, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to work with your school schedule. And I'm like, you're not going to look at my anything else? And he was like, well, I understand that you're a student, but we don't really want a student. Like, we want a little bit more from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I was kind of put off.
Yeah.
But then I realized that the place across the street actually was hiring. And that's where I went on their website. I applied. They didn't call me for 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
4 months. And then they called me the day before, the first time that I went with your family to the cruise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The day before we went on the cruise. And he's like, hey, can you come up Monday and get this interview? And I'm like, I'm kind of going on a cruise like tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be back till like the following Sunday. And he goes, okay, what about that Monday then? So I'm like thinking, yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then I hung up. I'm just like, I just scheduled an interview at 8 or it was like at 9 a.m. the next morning after probably a long day from getting off the cruise. So that happened. I went there. I had to go through 2 interviews. So I interviewed with him. He was my manager. He was a really cool guy. But one of the things that he, this is just a side note, one of the things that he was interested in my resume was the fact that I was the drumline captain of my high school marching band.
You never know what's going to get people.
Exactly.
On
I was shocked. And he was like, you know why I called you up, right? And he was like, I worked at Cricket. I was, no. I mean, he was like, yeah, but like that was nice to, have that experience. But I saw that you were your drumline captain for 2 years at your high school. Yeah. And then he goes on telling me, he's like, I went to school for music education.
Jeez.
And I'm like, you're a manager at a Verizon wireless store and you went to school for music education? Yeah. He goes, yeah, so like I know how band kids are, so like I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to hire you. Yeah. So then like a day or 2 later, I had an interview with the bigger guy, and he's like, yeah, come on board. It was like an hour-ish long each interview, which I don't know how long interviews are supposed to be necessarily, but during my times at both of those places, one of the coolest things, not like obviously the technology is fantastic, right? But one of the coolest things was actually getting to meet a ton of people. Mm-hmm. I kind of did the math one day, and if I saw like 15 people, like 15 different people every day that I worked for an entire year, it came out to be like almost like 3,000 people more, like 3,000 people that I've met. Yeah. And it was just super interesting. Like these people are crazy cool. Like I met a DEA agent. Like she was wicked. Like she was like 6'2". And she was just like so down to earth, and she was really cool. She knew a lot of stuff. I got to talk to her. Okay, so how I was talking about the DuckDuckGo browser? Right. I met the father of one of the co-founders of DuckDuckGo. That's crazy. He came into my not the restaurant. He came into my store, and he gave me his phone, and he's like, I don't know what's going on with it. Yeah. And I look on it, and I was like, oh, you have the DuckDuckGo app installed on here. Just start conversation. Yeah. And like it was like a legitimate conversation. Yeah. Like I was intrigued that he had the DuckDuckGo app, and he knew what the DuckDuckGo app on it. Yeah. So I said, I'm surprised you have this. Not a lot of people have that. And he goes, yeah, my son made the business. What? And I go, what? And then like he tells me about it, and apparently like DuckDuckGo was created in Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh.
Over east. And there was I think one of the founders was actually went to Penn State. And I'm just like, and the one was from Beaver. I think it was Beaver. I think it was Sewickley. Yeah. One of them was from Sewickley. So he I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, that's really cool. And then I met, the Air Force Base is right up in Moon. Right. So I met 2 Air Force guys. One was actually in charge of the cyber intelligence division at the Air Force Base. The other one was in charge of like some kind of computer management systems at the Air Force Base. Right. So I got to talk to them a little bit, and that was like that was like wild. Like I was like, these are like legitimate people who I'm meeting at this job. So I loved the aspect of meeting new people. But the one person that stands out the most when I was working at Verizon was he was actually the first person that was like intrigued. Like I was intrigued by him. His name was Alex Green. He's from Boston or something. I think it was Boston. But he was over in the area for some kind of athletic event or something. So he came in. He's just like this big jacked guy. He had like a Red Bull tank top on and cargo shorts, and sandals, and he was carrying a book bag. I don't remember why he came in, but we got on the topic of where he worked, and he was a software engineer for Red Hat. Are you familiar with Red Hat?
I've heard of it.
You know the Fedora Linux?
Yeah.
The creators of that is called Red Hat, and Red Hat does a lot of like incredible stuff, like with open source technology, a lot of stuff with I forget exactly what they do, but they're just big company. I'm just like, I kind of never heard of Red Hat.
Right.
And he goes, well, have you heard of IBM? And I go, yeah, I've heard of IBM. He's like, yeah, I worked there for like 5 years.
Wow.
So like I met someone who worked at IBM, and then he also told me a lot about Red Hat. So he showed me, he was like, this is the, I got on the topic of what I'm doing for college, and he was like, oh, that's really cool. Connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm connected with this guy on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is what I want you to do when you get back to your dorm. I want you to look up Fedora Linux. I want you to look up how to use Linux, and just go for it. Just like learn as much as you can about it, because it's one of the coolest and most powerful, things in the entire world. And it's true. Like Linux is like basically the infrastructure of everything that we've ever used, banking, literally everything. So he sparked my interest in, the Linux side of, the security side of the technology. So like I said, the people who I met, absolutely incredible, and that was one of the best things that I from that. Plus I also like to help the people do the stuff as that they needed me to do.
Interesting. Well, I definitely think that you probably got a ton more value out of those jobs than most people, because
100%.
because you made a ton of connections. You got to meet different people. You took advantage of those opportunities. And from all that experience, not just with the technology obviously, but like the networking experience, like we mentioned there. Now what do you have? You have another like idea, a business idea, and what did that, I know the story, but obviously people don't have the context. So what was the result of that?
So like I said, I've worked at those two places, and it was a lot of customer service related. So that was one of the biggest things that I like to do. They came in, they needed my help. I would help them with whatever they needed to do. That wasn't necessarily the job description, but I did it anyway because I enjoyed doing it. So one of the things that was flowing through my mind was like, I kind of want to do something similar outside of what I'm doing here. Didn't really know what it was at first, but then I got transferred to the Beaver store, the Verizon Beaver store. And that's kind of like not necessarily an old area, but there was a lot of older people who came in, and they loved us. They would come in a couple times a day, kind of hurt us more than anything, because the way the business is that you're supposed to sell to every single person who came in. So if that person came in 2 or 3 times, but you already sold to them the first time, you can't sell it to them the second or third or fourth time that they come in that day. It kind of hurts you a little bit. But one of the topics that I heard a lot of was that they wished that they had classes or something for them to be able to learn about this technology. Because let's face it, like everything's moving towards mobile. Everything's moving towards the internet.
Right.
But unfortunately, due to how fast technology has grown, it seems like we kind of forgot about an entire generation. We don't really care too much that they don't have a cell phone, like a smartphone. like they may have a cell phone, like a flip phone or something, but you can't really access the internet on that.
Right.
And we had a lot of people kind of like having these flip phones, but they couldn't access the internet. So like when we needed them to get into the internet, they weren't able to do so. They didn't know anything about the internet. They were kind of scared of the internet because they didn't know how to use it. So that's another thing. But they wanted classes to be able to use it because they wanted to get with the times. And I like I said, like I do think that we literally forgot an entire generation. Like we just forgot about them. We didn't really care that they didn't get with the times when we already had, gotten with the times. So they, like I said, they wanted to have classes. They wanted to be able to, use the stuff that we're doing every day. But there's not really anything to do that to, except go into the local Verizon store and ask for help. Most people don't understand that when you go into a Verizon store, or AT&T store, Sprint store, Cricket store, they are not there for necessarily technical support. They are there to sell you something. So if they are rude to you, because you just need technical support and you're not interested in buying anything, but you don't know why they're rude to you, the reason is because you are technically hurting their sales by coming in, asking and requesting for help. It's just a bad situation.
Right. And it's not even really the employee's fault because
It's the company's,
you can get punished if you don't make the sales.
Exactly. So like I would assume that a lot of the, workers want to genuinely help people, but the companies have made them into money hungry people. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a bad thing when you kind of give attitude to the customers because they won't buy anything, or they're coming in and it's almost like a burden on you, the employee, because they just need help with something. And like I've been there, like I've kind of like felt like I've seen this person for the 4th time this week. What could they possibly need help
crazy.
with? And like I felt so bad, and it was just like a bad situation. Like I wanted to help them, but I know that I'm getting in trouble and my job is on the line. And technically it just came down to it being, about that. I was talking to a lot of people, helping them out, but I wasn't converting them. Like I wasn't making them buy anything. And then like they were tired. They were kind of getting tired of my excuse, being, I already sold to them. They're not buying anything else. And then they were like, if they're coming into that store, they are wanting to buy something every single time. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So it was just a bad situation all in all. So,
yeah.
But moving on, I definitely wanted to help people in my own way. So like I said, there was this thing in the back of my mind. I wanted to do something. I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And my business idea was basically a tech service / education service. That's like the main thing. Like I am willing to help you with whatever you want, transferring your data, showing you how to use it. And obviously it's going to be It's like evolving. Like I added the idea of, I'm a very hardcore privacy advocate. If you want to learn more about this, I will literally sit down with you, explain the entire thing to you so that you are able to make your own decisions about the things that you want to do. So it's just like it's a growing thought. I'm almost done with it. This is like my big reveal on, Fueled by Progress podcast.
We're plugging it.
Yeah, definitely plugging it for sure. But, I also don't think that I would have been able to do it without your help, obviously.
I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah. So
anytime.
So there's still a lot of stuff that needs to go into it. I have people I'm talking to who I want them to put their input into it as well. But the big thing is the goal is for me to help whoever wants to help. And it's also I want to alleviate the burden on, certain people's family members explaining to them how to use it. Like that can be exhausting. Like for me personally, like my mother is tech savvy, but she's not to the level where I expect her to be, just
Yeah.
because like, you know,
Right.
who I am and
Right.
how I've already
Yeah,
explained
it's
this
tough.
4 times. And like as a, you know, family member
Yeah.
that could, I'm sure it is, like, this is across the board. Like there was situations when I had customers coming in with family members and they were literally screaming at the top of their lungs at one another.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't figure out what this was, but one family member said they knew how to do it when they actually didn't know how to do it.
Right.
And then they were just arguing, screaming back and forth. I'm just like sitting there like, I will explain this to you and just, you know, kind of relax a little bit. But I understand that family can't help you with everything. So I want to be able to offer a service that, you know, is up in my field to be able to help you with whatever technological needs that, you know, because I feel like I'm pretty, you know, well versed around most technologies. Like no matter, because like I have 2 phones. One's one's a Android phone, one's an iPhone. I've used an iPad. I've used an Android tablet. I've used basically everything.
Right.
So I feel like I'm pretty well versed enough to be able to help anyone out who wants my help. So like I want to get that out there.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Yeah. So do you want to plug it directly? Are you ready to actually tell them what the name?
Yeah. So I don't want any judgment from anyone. But the name of the business that I am currently developing is called TechNeighbor. And the whole idea is to literally be your neighborly friend to help you with whatever you want. And like I said, like I truly believe like I will be able to help anyone who wants my help. Like you have to like, you know, want to help yourself first.
Yeah, for sure. That's
Like
huge.
you can't like if you tell someone like, you know, you gotta go do this and do this and do this, but they're not willing to put in that effort to learn the stuff. Like that's a little bit difficult. But like, I want people to be able to get with the times. I want people to be able to understand their device. Like, and by me saying I want people to get with the times, I'm not talking about just, you know, the older generation. There are, you know, friends of mine who are so tech illiterate. It's kind of scary. Like, it's not really their fault. They never really got into it. But it just comes down to, you know, the world is moving in this direction. You're going to have to learn eventually. So the best way is to adapt now so that you're not struggling, you know, once it gets a little bit more complex later.
Right. Yeah, that's actually really the tough part. And I mean, like that is a very noble and honorable quest that you're taking on there, because you think about it like, okay, older people, well, it was kind of thrust upon them in the middle of their life.
Definitely,
right? I mean,
yeah.
it was coming, but like, you know, nobody could have seen, you know, something like this happening so quickly. So you kind of give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but even more so, like they aren't going to really, unfortunately, they're not going to be around, or they're not going to have a higher need to utilize this technology. But if you're a young person, you know, like us, like 20s, you know, maybe even 30s, and you don't understand the stuff that well, you're gonna need it for most jobs and most things, like in day-to-day life. Like it makes your life so much easier in so many ways, and you just actually can be so much more productive and efficient, I think, in a lot of things.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have personally seen firsthand is that those who don't understand technology, whether it is an older generation or someone our age, they are spending a lot more money on things that they're not aware of. For example, my mom isn't really understanding with the whole banking, you know, thing online. So there's actually been times when she's been paying more than she would, you know, have to otherwise. This is like, you know, sometimes bills, sometimes just other things. A lot of things that I've seen is that people will absolutely refuse to do, what do you call it? Like it automatically takes out of your account.
Yeah, like auto pay.
Auto pay. People will they refuse to do auto pay because they don't understand it.
Right.
And they think that they're paying more to do auto pay, which is
Weird.
because companies are willing to give you a discount if you do auto pay. So Verizon, from what I've seen, Verizon gives you a $10 auto pay discount. Like I think it might be $10 per phone off. So if you have 5 phones on your account, that's $50 per month that you could be saving by doing auto pay. But they're just afraid of it. They don't really understand how it works. But if someone were to tell them, like, yeah, auto pay for the most part, it's pretty safe. Like, they're only taking it directly out of your account. Like, that's basically it for the most part.
Right.
And then the other thing is, because a lot of people don't know, I'm also kind of bringing this back to TechNeighbor a little bit. People do not know anything about the technology that they want to. Where do they go? They go into Best Buy. They go into these companies, and they think that these salespeople have like their best intentions. And notice how I said salespeople and not like, your support people.
Right.
I just had a friend recently go to Best Buy. She is a writer. She just does the things. The only things that she really does on her computer is type papers. She's a writer. That's all she does. The Best Buy person that was there convinced her to buy a like $1,500 laptop that had 16 gigabytes of RAM. It was a Core i7.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening that don't understand, like, it's basically for heavy use, basically.
Yeah, not for typing.
Not for typing. But she was like saying, like, like, I really needed a computer that day. Like it was like anxious. Like, it just, like, my old computer just died. I had a paper to do the next day. And I'm just like, kind of wish you kind of asked me about that. Like, I would have given you, like, some pointers, because you just went into Best Buy. Best Buy doesn't have really commission, but they have a sales goal for, like, per day. Like, they have, like, a certain amount of money that they have to sell per day. And if they don't get it, it's, from what I understand, it's a big deal, but not as big of a deal because it's not really commission related.
Yeah.
But, like, one of her friends, she was talking to him. He works at the same Best Buy that she got it from.
Yeah.
I was like, so you didn't ask him either about this?
Jeez.
Because, like, I feel like he would have had, like, a better intention for her than anything.
Right.
But she bought a $1,500 laptop just to be able to type papers on. I'm just like, you didn't need that.
Yeah.
So people are spending a lot of money because basically the salesperson tells them you have to spend this much money to do something that you want to do.
Yeah. No, that's wild.
It's scary, man.
Especially the first example that you gave with the banking. Didn't even make the connection there that, like, before Amanda got online banking, she had a bunch of random charges, because, like, you don't monitor that sort of stuff. You don't monitor that sort of stuff because you don't. You're like, where's my money going? And it's like, oh, well, it's because, like, you're subscribed to random things on iOS or whatever the hell the situation is. So there's definitely an enlightenment process there that really shines some light and some education and knowledge on people.
Listen, I hate when, I do consider myself to be a very business guy, capitalistic, view guy. Yeah. But I hate when companies or anything, like, they just take advantage of their customers. It royally makes me so angry. Yeah. Like, it's disgusting. Like,
I feel that.
Just because I've seen it firsthand, my family, at my work. Not saying that Verizon's, like, a bad company or anything. Verizon is actually pretty good. Cricket's pretty good. It's just the people that they sometimes employ are very questionable.
Yeah.
So
gotta be careful.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, that's a very good idea, a very well needed idea. I'm sure there's other people doing it that you can take, like, different pieces of their business model and different things like that, and ideas and stuff. And I think you could have something really cool, especially if you made it scalable. Like, some of the stuff that I'm struggling with right now with these things is just you don't have enough time to do things. But if you had, like you mentioned, maybe you have a podcast, or you have something where you field all those requests, because if one person has a question, somebody else is going to have
that same question.
I'm sure you answered the same question a bunch when you were at, like, Verizon and stuff. So if you can somehow take that and scale it and monetize in multiple forms, I think you're gonna have something nice there. I think that'll be a real cool, at least side project at the beginning, maybe full time if you wish to do so. Yeah,
definitely a side project right now. But, like, I'm willing to commit to any customer that wants my help. Like, this is technically just a side project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a job in the future, but I'm willing to help out. My 100% commitment to anyone that wants to help. I will help you out as best as I can.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm very excited for you. I'm happy that you're taking that route. I don't ever like to pitch entrepreneurship to people. I feel like a dick when I do that because I don't want to do that. But if it's something that you feel it, I think I love it. So,
dude, just being around you, like I said, like I had this thing like business mind since I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. Like just with the whole. Wanting to create a website for these girls just to sell their arts and crafts. Like,
yeah.
So I like just being around like the right people,
right.
I think can do a lot. And like, I would consider you to be the right type of person
Appreciate
to be
that.
able to spark essentially the child in me, get the business.
I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, like, people, we didn't get into it too much, but like just as an as like a generalization, I think a lot of people just think very, step by step, like, we go to school, we go to college, we get a degree, we have to go into that field or whatever and work for 40 years. And that, I realized that pretty quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't in the right place and all these other things. So, I mean, I'm not going to like reiterate my story, but I really like it when, I see people like you, ambitious people that have a passion and then they want to go after that passion in a form that is not confined and like just specifically to a corporation or to something like that. That's absolutely cool. And I think, and I would, recommend and encourage people to do whatever they want to do. But if you have that in you and you're young and you have a chance to take like a little bit of a risk here and there, maybe like invest some money into a business to try to start something and help people, I find it so rewarding, with all the stuff that I'm doing. So I'm very excited to see where you're headed from there, and
I'm excited for myself too.
Yeah. We will definitely plug everything. Check the links in the description below. We know we got a website going up, and if you need any help, I'll make sure we got all the stuff in the description and the show notes and everything to hit you up. We've covered some solid topics here.
Very solid.
A lot of good stuff. A lot of value. I want to hit you with the kind of three working questions that we have at the end here. First one is, who are your 3 biggest influences? Like, and again, every time I ask this question, I try to refine it a little bit more. So I would just say, doesn't need to be in your life specifically, it can be directly or indirectly. But again, if there is somebody that you've watched, like content or something like that, like outside, like more of a public thing that our audience could benefit from and like share that, then, but just in general, who do you think your biggest 3 have been?
So I would obviously say that, how I was brought up has definitely been a big influence. Like I said earlier, like my family watched a bunch of crime detective shows growing up.
Right.
Like, I've watched basically every single crime detective show like that there's ever been available, every single CSI, every single thing. And that has actually, I don't know if I said this, there's actually a legitimate thing called the CSI effect, where it encourages people to go into like law enforcement and stuff based off of the CSI TV shows. Yeah. So I would consider myself a victim of the CSI effect. Yeah. But obviously, like I said, like the way I was raised, it was an influence. The content that they watched was something I watched. So the content was a big thing. Another influence. Do you know who Alex Winter is?
No, I don't.
So I'm pretty sure almost everyone knows who Alex Winter is, but they don't know where they know him from. Have you ever seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I don't know if
Keanu Reeves.
I don't know if I've actually seen it, but I've definitely heard of it and maybe like seen some of it or something.
So obviously Bill and Ted, Keanu Reeves is Ted, and the other guy that is Alex Winter.
Oh, okay.
So Alex Winter is an actor, or he was an actor, and he's like a really remarkable guy. Yeah. He's a director now, But one of the things that he's into is the cyberspace. So I can pinpoint a time back in the summer going into my freshman year of college where he was featured on a TED Talk. A TED Talk.
That's funny.
No one ever really thinks of TED Talks as something that's good.
Yeah.
All too often, they were forced to watch them in high school. They probably were bored out of their mind.
Yeah.
But I watched this TED Talk with Alex Winter, and he's remarkable. Like he does a lot of privacy stuff. Like he has influenced the way I look at technology. He did a movie in 2015 called Deep Web. Basically, he went over and he explains the deep web. Keanu Reeves is actually the narrator for it. So, so it was cool. But he goes over because there's this thing called the Silk Road, and it was this dark web thing, a bunch of drugs, anarchy, whatever. Right. And they ended up catching the creator of the website of the Silk Road. And he just explains it. They didn't really give him a fair trial because they only heard the prosecutor's side to the argument, but they didn't hear the defense to it because they wouldn't let him defend himself, essentially. So that was interesting. But he, as a person, he was on Joe Rogan like 5 years ago. That's a really good, really, really, really good talk with him and Joe Rogan, because it basically talks a lot about the stuff that we've kind of went over today. Yeah. So he was cool. But third influencer, it's almost cliche to say, but it's like Elon Musk is like an absolute gem when it comes to like business and technology. Like his SpaceX thing, like a lot of people know him from like Tesla and whatnot, but like his SpaceX thing was always something that I was interested in, believe it or not. But I kind of blame that on the movies and TV shows that I watched as a child, like Armageddon, Lost in Space, stuff like that, like those types of movies. It's like it's the unknown that is kind of fascinating about that. So Elon Musk is kind of trying to figure out what that unknown is. So kudos to him. Everything. But all in all, like, I think he gets a bad rap because he's wealthy, but I think he's really he's really doing good for a lot of people. I just don't think they know it yet.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wild ideas, but he's a true unstoppable force as far as what he does.
Like I don't want to like people to be mad that like we are influenced by Elon Musk. Like, you go and read his tweets, they're kind of out there, but they're goofy. It creates like a huge atmosphere of like he gets free publicity all the time. Like it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like, briefly to that point, there's also, you can be influenced by certain pieces of people, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you can,
that's true.
You know, so that's like, true, maybe you don't like every bit of it, but like if you don't agree with the fact that, and you don't, admire the fact of how hard he works and how visionary he is, then, I mean, like, you're that's definitely.
Yeah. I like everything he's done. Like, I've read basically his entire life history. Coming from South Africa, coming to Canada, going to the University of Pennsylvania, then going to, I think it was Stanford, and then he dropped out, and he's the person who he is now. It's just an absolute. He's like this ridiculously and like just geniusly smart guy. So I'm so excited for what he has next. Like that Cybertruck thing, it's growing on me. Man. I want one now.
Got to put the deposit down.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's a good guy, man. That's I love those influences. I think that those are tremendous. Definitely gonna have to check out Alex
Winter.
Alex Winter. Gotcha. We'll definitely make a note of that. Second big question is, what is your best advice for people? Now, again, it can kind of be wherever you want to go. Maybe it's like a cybersecurity type thing. Maybe it's just like an overall thing. But again, refining this one, what do you tell people? What do you tell people all the time?
I think I have kind of like two pieces of advice. One business related and one security related. So for the security related is like, you just have to understand like the internet is pretty much permanent. I would be very careful as to what you put on the internet, no matter what it is.
Right.
Like that picture that you took, there might be some stuff in the background that could potentially hurt you in the future. And it's kind of true what they say, like, companies, they look at your social media. If they think that you're really wacky and out there, they don't want you. It's just true. I've talked to these people, firsthand, like they don't want you. The second piece of advice that I would give, especially around, like I would say this is mainly for business, but I think this should be more of a life advice, if anything. Do not settle for mediocrity. You want to do as much as you can. Do not say like, this is good enough. There's things that can always be improved upon.
Yep.
So just don't settle for anything less than, perfect, essentially.
Right. Gotcha. That's tremendous advice, man. Last one, easy one for most, it's kind of a layup. It's, one last kind of like plug and everything like that. So obviously we talked about Tech Neighbor. We talked about what you have going on in your life. Is there anywhere where, and we'll have links for everything in the description for Tech Neighbor and all that. Is there anywhere where you would like people to kind of follow you, where you're kind of publicly active? Obviously from our conversations, it's a fine line, but
I do not let people follow me who I don't know.
Gotcha.
That's like my personal accounts and whatnot.
Yeah.
I've considered making a professional account, but
gotcha.
Meh.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of Tech Neighbor, you can find a lot of information that I was referring to today on techneighboronline.com.
Gotcha.
You can find a bunch of services that I am offering. You can find a little bit more background about me. That is actually one thing. I did put a little bit give up a lot of private information about me on my website, on my owner info, basically. So yeah, I guess I am giving up a little bit.
Well, I mean,
of
it gives people, it gives it a little personal touch.
I do want to make people understand, like, I'm not some greedy business guy that is only out for your money. And you're not going to get anything good in return. I want to make sure you get something in return for sure.
Yeah.
Like I will do whatever I can.
Right.
But yeah, you can go onto techneighboronline.com, and it's TECH, like tech, and then neighbor, however you spell neighbor,
yeah,
and then online.com.
Gotcha. And then also Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, you can find on Facebook and Instagram at tech.neighbor. That's the simplest way to, get the best idea.
Yeah, we'll have direct links and everything. Yeah. So yeah, but definitely go check Tech Neighbor out. Buddy, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate you being on, man. A lot of great stuff. Very excited to see where it goes from now.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And we'll definitely have you back.
If you want me.
Sometime down the line here, we'll have another update on everything that's going on, and maybe you'll be working for Secret Service or something at that. Well, we probably can't talk about that though. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I know some things I'm not really supposed to know, so I kind of kept that out of the conversation for today.
We'll see how it goes, but definitely best of luck, man, with Tech Neighbor.
I do have one more thing, actually. So I am looking to expand my team at Tech Neighbor. Okay. So if you want to send me something that you have to offer, I am talking to a guy right now about having programming classes for people.
There you go.
He's just one person. If you are a writer, I'm looking for a writer.
There you go.
If you are someone who is just like me, privacy, technology, anything oriented around who exactly I am, let me know. Like, send a message to the Tech Neighbor account, or you can email me at jesse.techneighbor@gmail.com. Yeah.
Is there a form on the site too?
There is not a form because there was too much spam. It was driving me nuts.
Is the email on there?
The email should be on there.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll have the links, and I'll put the email and everything in the description too.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Yeah, definitely reach out though. You guys want to be part of the Tech Neighbor team.
No, it's not a Tech Neighbor. You get to become the Tech Neighbor.
Oh, you are the Tech Neighbor. You are the Tech Neighbor.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't explain that. Sorry about that.
It's all good. There you go. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Had a great time. A lot of good stuff here. I know we got a lot of value out of that, and thank you again.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Fueled by Progress with our guest, Jesse Stechly, and we will talk to you in the next one.